Christopher Carter has scaled AppRoyo, which is a global tech firm, by doing one thing really well: riding the wave before it crests. He spent his entire career going through all different kinds of tech shifts to today's cloud infrastructure, and he's built a career on timing, perspective, and knowing when to zoom out and when to get out of the weeds. So we're going to talk about all kinds of great things in this interview, everything from stages of business that he's been through, the value of good counsel, what it takes to lead both from a macro vision perspective and micro discipline. And we'll even get into brandy consumption in Wisconsin. This is going to be a fun show. I'm Bryon Morrison. Let's get to the leaders list.
Everything is happening through these screens.
How are we getting the most out of that person?
I want to see this thing grow long term.
Amazing story. You have such a unique perspective on that.
Schedule a 2-week vacation.
I applaud those models.
Undervalue.
Secure your digital footprint as well.
Why were they even put in place in the first place?
Only the most adaptable survive.
Let's get to the leaders list.
Chris Carter, welcome to the leaders list, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bryon. I'm excited.
Man, not many people hop on here with their, Meta Ray-Bans on, ready to be as cool as you and I. So I'm super impressed with you, man.
Thanks, I appreciate it. We were just talking about this off camera. I've gotten 2 pairs of them, and the real sunglasses outside, the ones that I can use for skiing, and in this beautiful winter weather of negative 27 degrees in Wisconsin. And these babies, I love these things. This is right now for us ultimate technology. They really work, and they bring the data back. They bring the information back. I talk about books and other things. So yeah, I love using these things now.
It's funny because, okay, so let's launch in. You're the founder, CEO of AppRoyo. You're a celebrated author. You're an investor. You've had your company for 10 years, 12 years, 14 years. Okay. You've seen it from a lot of different angles. And so we're thrilled to have you here just to talk about really what it's like as you have gone through your journey as an entrepreneur in the technology space. So let's launch in with that, Chris. Yeah. Tell us just a little bit about you and AppRoyo.
Yeah. So I started out as a technologist, not knowing I was a technologist. When I was 1985, I got my first computer, a Commodore VIC-20. And I loved it. I bought all the attachments. It really was. There's more technology in my little pinky than there is inside. Hell, there's more technology in these glasses than there was in it. I had the sidebars of the printer. I had the cassette tape. And for those youngins that don't know what cassette tapes were, ask your mom and dad how we had to use a pencil to change them. And I used to tape over my girlfriend's romantic music that she would put on a cassette, that she would have to sit at a car radio or some type of radio with her. And I took my Apple IIe. I left my Atari 80 back home because I just couldn't take 3 computers to Georgia Tech. And I started my career in technology, not knowing what my future would be. I just thought, okay, I'm going to go there. I'm going to learn more about these, and I'm going to try to build my own. I'm going to try to code my own. Literally a year and a half into it was my sophomore year. So a year and a half in, I got an internship at Coca-Cola, and it changed my life because SAP software was being run there. And they were switching over to now the x86 platforms instead of the old mainframes and everything we had to deal with. These monstrosities of metal that literally inside my phone is literally more capabilities than what was in a mainframe that was probably in a room 25,000 square feet back in the day. And they asked me to intern. I took it. Then SAP asked me to work with them. And that's where my technology. And the great thing from that point is I've always been adventurous and I've always been entrepreneurial. I just started learning. I wanted to learn about Java. I wanted to learn about T-codes. I wanted to learn anything and everything they could give me. And I just went off and learned as much as I could. And that's where my technology background and my go for it. And, I love to have fun. Life's too short. You got to enjoy it. And I sure try to do that with technology every single day. Hence 2 pairs of Meta glasses.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got bit by the bug, and certainly you were, enamored with floppy disks and, really cool tech like that. But when you went through that process, you knew that you loved it. You knew that you were, kind of interested and addicted to it. But did you know at that time that you were in the middle of something that was big, like a wave of change? Was it that SAP moment at Coke? Like what was it that made you start to realize this is bigger than just a fun hobby?
So I knew that technology was going to be something that was going to keep growing. I assumed that, but what really caught me was during the process from going from a mainframe system to these x86 boxes, these Dells, these servers, the server farms that we were creating. That's when I knew that technology was going to be here to stay, and that it was going to keep evolution. The changes were going to keep coming, because going from that monstrosity of a 25,000 square foot room down to a room that was 5,000 square feet with air conditioned chilies, and to be able to connect all these systems together, and then VMware came into play, and I started playing on all of those tools. That's when I really was like, oh, this is okay. I'm all in. I'm in technology. Here we go. I don't want to be in business anymore. I don't want to be in the finance classes anymore. I just wanted to play with technology.
That's awesome. Well, you picked the right wave to ride. That's fantastic. And then naturally, you've gone from those great big, air conditioned rooms, those enormous machines, to obvious transition to the cloud, right?
Absolutely. And it's funny to see where I started from. You look back at a Commodore VIC-20. The only capability we had was tape drives and floppy drives. Now we go out and everything is on a cloud, and now you're trying to figure out how big I'm going to build my architecture, how small I can build my architecture. Everything that was in a room is now up there. And now I'm trying to figure out, just based on keyboard strokes, get in my computer, get in my Azure data dashboard, or my AWS, and even sometimes GCP and IBM and others. Now I just build away. And it's like that. I don't have to get a procurement number. I don't have to worry about deliveries. I don't have to worry about KVMs. KVMs, for you kids, are back in the day, we would connect our keyboard, our mouse, and our monitor to the back of these systems so we could see all 20 of them at one time. So you'd use one mouse, one keyboard, one monitor for 20 servers. That's a KVM. But it was so much fun back then too. But now I can literally, all I have to do is take my mouse, move over, and I see my entire landscape right there. Instantaneous gratification of technology. It's incredible and it's wonderful all at the same time.
Yeah. So AppRoyo 14 years ago, talk to us about like what made you decide to go out on your own and do it on your own.
Oh, thank you for that question. Oh my God, so what made me start was a bottle of scotch. One bottle of scotch. Thank my friend Michael Schultz, who was the vice president of SAP. I had kind of retired for about a year and a half, 2 years, and I was working for a startup company out of California, and I ran their practice for them. And I had been disenchanted with SAP. I had started another company, and before that another company, and I had to put one company down, and I hated the way that I was being treated by, I'll be honest, Siemens. Siemens came in and said, look, we're going to cut your contract by 75%. You need to cut it now, or we're sending it all to our offshore team. And I was so saddened. I had to let people go. I had to put a company into foreclosure, bankruptcy, and remodified it out. But then I came back. And then one night, Michael came to me with a bottle of scotch on my fire pit and said, look, you need to get back in the game. There's this new thing called HANA, this database. It's in memory. I'm not exactly sure. We're still figuring out. But you, of all people, would know this. So I literally got on my phones that night and my computers, and I was calling people in Waldorf, Germany. I was calling people in Palo Alto, California. And I said, what is this stuff? Can I find it? Can I demo it? Can I look into it? I flew to Waldorf, Germany 48 hours later. I then flew back from Waldorf, Germany after a week in Germany with some friends and going through it with SAP. flew home, grabbed my to-go bag, handed off my wife, gave her a kiss, a little peck on the cheek, and said, I love you. I'll be back from California in a couple days. Flew to Palo Alto, California, worked with their team there, learned all about it. And I immediately put in an invitation to be one of the first ever SAP Startup Focus Program partners. They gave me a partnership as one of the first 25 ever companies as that program. So I literally took that on day one and I LLC'd the company, created what is now AppRoyo, named it after a baseball player, Bronson Arroyo, instead of AppRoyo, you're Bronson Arroyo. Hey, Bronson, I hope you're having fun touring with your band. And went off from there. And almost 15 years now, we've been doing nothing but SAP, really digging into AI now the last 3 years, cloud-based technologies. I was very fortunate. I was the first company to ever virtualize an SAP cloud, and I got my hand slapped for that one in Palo Alto one day. That's a different story for a different time. And we just went. I always firmly believe that this technology, this is, you've got your Elon Musk, and I think he's a phenomenal person, Bryon. You look at Elon, and he's got it. I look at people like Hasso Plattner. Dr. Plattner created SAP. Elon is in the media. He wants to be out there. He wants to showcase everything, and great technology. But Dr. Plattner doesn't do a lot of media, doesn't have a best-selling book behind him, doesn't have a book that talks about him in any way, shape, or form. But he is the backbone. 93.7% of all, and I mean all financial transactions on the planet go through an SAP software in one way, shape, or form.
Wow.
93.7% of the finances, 90% of all Fortune 1000 companies have SAP in one way, shape, or form. There's only 2 that apparently don't have any entity, but apparently one of them just got Concur. So now it's 99% from what we're told. So
that's amazing.
Nobody knows of Dr. Plattner except for us in the SAP ecosystem. This guy is a billionaire multi-times over. He's a genius. And I've been very, very fortunate to be in the same room, meeting with him, shaking his hand. And although I do media and I do promotions and I love my podcast and stuff, I take value in what he has created to be able to help others. Because really, I'm here to help others get into this ecosystem, but also help them to learn the technologies and learn SAP, to learn cloud, to learn AI. Yeah. And for me, that's the bonus plan. I get to help others.
That's awesome. So, Chris, what's the type of clients that AppRoyo works with? Give us an idea of your ideal customer.
Thank you. That's a great question because it's hard. Right now is a hard time in this technology realm that we're in. You've got everybody talking about AI, and there's all these different. Well, SAP does AI. We've got a great tool called Joule that we use inside the system. But we work with companies who, A, run SAP software, or B, want to run SAP software. But we typically we don't need to help everybody. We would love to, sure. Anybody calls me from a multi-billion-dollar, if somebody from Coca-Cola called me again, I would help, or Chevron or whoever, the multi-billion-dollar voice. We typically stay $2 billion and below. And we stay in that realm because they can make decisions faster that benefit their companies faster. A lot of times you get above that $2 billion range, above the SMB market or the mid-market, we call it. They can't make those decisions as quickly. And then you give them something that can really benefit them this quarter, and it takes 2 quarters for them to make a decision. So we tend to stay at the $2 billion and below and really focus on organizations that are ready for change, because we are in the largest upgrade cycle in SAP's history. Every single one of their customers have got to go to that cloud up there now, and we do it exceptionally well. We are the cloud people for SAP and AI, and I'm honored that my team is so good that we're one of their premier partners for that.
That's awesome.
It's all about my team.
Yeah. Well, so that's interesting is you start looking at companies that are ready to make change. Like, how do you go find that list? Right? I mean,
difficult.
yeah,
because
because it
we
is
do
it
this
is
part-
interesting. When I think about 2 billion and below, it's the same reason I work in the SMB market, right? I mean, I loved working with Fortune 500, and they're incredible, and you learn so much, but you also learn that you spend a lot of time throwing rocks into the ocean. The ripple effect is very minimal. And
Right.
when you work with SMBs or mid-market, like you were saying, you make impact overnight and like real substantial change. So I get that. That's a fundamental business decision.
Yes.
And you're pretty darn lucky that SAP can even talk to those people now, right? I remember the days when it was like,
Oh, back in the day,
you're not a $10 billion company. You can't use this. Like it's a
That was
different world.
yes.
So how do you get to that other side of it though, to know if it's the right kind of client who wants to make change? That piece.
Yeah, it's difficult because companies, there's two facets to that. They want to make change, but they can't afford it. They want to make change, but they don't have the people for it. And they want to make change, but they don't know how, where, why is, and what. So one of the things that I've really done in the last 2 years is I try to educate people. If you don't want to hire my company, I get it. Hey, there's hundreds of companies out there that some are higher, some are lower, some are shit, some are not. I'll be more than happy to tell you the ones that are crappy and the ones that are the poopy emojis that my daughter likes to send me once in a while, or who are fantastic companies. And I work with some of the most fantastic companies in the world and some of the people. Steve Niesman, a guy from NTT Data, competitor, but a phenomenal human being, phenomenal company, good people. And we work together. Companies at Insight, we are their partner of choice. They're a global company, and we do all of their SAP support work for them. But it's all about educating them and finding them at the right time. So we're constantly putting out information about how's, what's, why's, and how's. And then I said, just tell them, as I just said there, if you don't want to hire my company, fine. But at least let me help educate you. I've been in this ecosystem since 1989 now. And there's one thing I've learned. I can tell the players from the poop. And you don't want to go down that pipeline into that sewer, because that's going to destroy your company. It's going to destroy, you will no longer be a CIO after you hire them. And there's things wrapped around it. I know of companies that all of a sudden on day one, they thought, oh, they had this great deal. 150 people showed up at their front door and they needed rooms, they needed computers, they needed all this. And they're like, what is this? What's going on here? Well, yeah, you're doing an SAP project. We're going to dump 150 people on your desk and they're going to do the project. I've had companies literally 3 to 6 months. One was 3 months, one was 6 months into a project with a company. One was an offshore company and one was a very large, we'll call it entity that in the ecosystem. And literally the 3-month company called me back and said, look, we made a major mistake. We need to talk. I need these people gone. They're bringing in all these offshore people that they can't even understand this, that they don't understand our business. So we went through an exercise. The 6-month company literally put an absolute stop to their upgrade project. And this is one of the biggest consulting firms and accounting firms in the world, headquartered here out of New York City. And they stopped them and said, look, you guys don't know what you're doing, haven't planned properly, haven't budgeted properly. We don't know what you're doing because everything we've talked to you about, you've thrown out the window. And literally it took them 2 months to get everything reconciled. And they still call me every once in a while and say, hey, they've asked about this, or can we do this? And I'll tell them yes, no, or otherwise, because I trust that they will listen to me because of experience, not because I want to get a gig from them. And I'll never probably our company will never work on any of their projects because they're just too big of an entity for us. They're a multi-billion dollar firm. But I'm willing to give them information to help them make the right decision to combat people who may not have the best intentions or may have the best intentions, but just aren't knowledgeable enough.
And not right for the specific situation. I love the thoughtful process. We are very aligned in that regard. I talk to people every day just to give counsel. And frankly, I'm fine with that because I think it all comes back to you, right? That's just putting good energy out into the universe.
Amen.
Get that back.
Exactly.
So, all right. So you started this about 15 years ago. We get an idea of your ethos and who you are, but what would you say? How would you describe AppRoyo's growth stage today?
Because of the largest upgrade cycle in history, it is on a go forward. It's not a hockey stick, and I don't want it to be a hockey stick, to be honest, because that can crush a company.
Yeah, you've always been pretty consistent about growth, right? I mean,
Yes.
like you got, I don't know how many folks you've got. I think it was like 25 or something like that.
No, we got now 73 globally.
Okay.
I had to start
wrong
a
information.
Royal Private Limited company out of India. So now we bring Indian students in from the major universities there, and we'll train them in our way of SAP. And that's a newer entity, and that group there. We still have about 25 people in the US. We have another group of people in Brazil. We have another group of people in Europe. And then we have the India facility. And I like that India facility because they can do the baseline that we do with our Overwatch tool, which monitors, supports organizations. And then they can drop off and they can put that forward to either the European team or the American teams and the project managers for the different projects and activities we have.
Super smart. I love a lot of people in a global economy, and when you start thinking about setting up multiple places, the ability to just roll from team to team. And once that starts humming, like I remember the first time I ever did that with a company, I was like, oh my gosh, we just uncovered something that is a secret weapon, to be able to just literally move from Eastern Europe, then go India, then back to US, and just keep that clock rolling. It was fascinating. Exactly.
The sun.
Super smart. Super smart. So you got some real heft in the organization. When you started to go offshore and you started to build those other offices, when did that happen? Talk a little bit about how you went through that transition of 25. I would expect you had some real ninjas, amazing talent here in the US, and then you started recognizing rinse and repeat. You have to be able to scale, I'm guessing. Like, tell me a little bit about that process so we can
all
understand
about
that.
COVID. COVID literally knocked me on my backside. We had our offices throughout the United States, and then everything had to go remote. And all of a sudden, we're going through that process. And I was talking with my chief operating officer, and I literally said to him, well, now I can hire the best and brightest no matter where they are in the world, because if we're all stuck here for the rest of our lives, I want the best people possible. So we had shut down offices. We gave everybody, of course, brand new laptops, brand new phones, everybody got it. So then we started looking at the India activity, and there are some great people in India and Turkey, in the United Kingdom, Andrew's over there, and blah, blah, blah. So we went through a process with our HR team and said, look, start going out and putting out offers throughout the entire world. I don't care where they are. I want the best. Go to Germany and talk to them who's going through their certifications. Go to India, talk about certifications. Go to Europe. I wanted people who were going through the certification process, because certified staff members gives us a world of difference compared to others. People might take a class here or there, but I wanted certified SAP staff members because, well, they're better. 2, they're more expensive, and so I can charge more, and people know that they're going to get better out of it, rather than somebody who just pops in and all of a sudden they're called a fresher, they call them. And this person is all of a sudden billing at $150 an hour, and they've never touched an SAP keyboard. No. I'm going to make sure that my people are certified. Like the guy who runs my team, Tejas, out in India, phenomenal talent, young man who's gotten certified, gone through the processes. They take the time to become educated, take the exams, be on that certification list. So no matter what we do, where we do, how we do it, those individuals are always going to be a part of some type of project. And that's huge for us. And it's a win-win for us and our customers.
Yeah. And so you obviously already had the business to do that,
Mhm.
you know, and to continue to scale.
Yeah.
So was that a scale period? Would you call that your
Yes.
big growth period? And did you
That
do
was
that all organically, or did you do that through any kind of acquisition? And
No.
what was the mindset when you went through that?
I really wanted to do some acquisitions, but every time we would talk to these companies and we started to go into it, just didn't fit right. There were probably 4 or 5 of them that we did. And we just decided, HR, you're going to organically. We stood up our AppRoyo Private Limited in India. So we have our office in Bangalore. It's literally, I kid you not, Bryon, you couldn't make this up, 2 stories above SAP's office in Bangalore, and it's 1 story underneath Microsoft's office in Bangalore, because they're all in the same trade towers. So we got that office area there. So when there's training classes at our people will be in those classes and they'll talk with people. They're very sneaky, and I love this because I've trained them. Go in there and just talk to them. Ask them where they're training on. Are they technical? Are they functional? Are they AI? Are they infrastructure? Cloud? What do they like to do? What would they like to do? Who do they work for? Are they working for one of the Indian offshore companies? Do they have an interest in moving? It's amazing what an extra $1 an hour does for anybody in a foreign country. You give them an extra $1 an hour and they all think they won the lottery. And we believe in making sure that they all win the lottery when they come and work for us, because we want them to be very well taken care of as well. And so we do. And it's amazing. We get people just resume after resume, class after class, and to the point where we've got stockpiles and we're ready to go if we take that next leap. But it was that period of time when we decided, and I guess I'll thank whoever for creating COVID or whatever, as bad as that sounds, and I apologize if it sounds really bad, but that's what changed our company dynamic, was right there. We knew, and we were smart enough to know, it's time to pivot. As they said in Friends, pivot. I always
Pivot.
love that.
Pivot.
Pivot.
No, it's so you recognize the opportunity as well as the challenge that was taking place. So it was hard for some people. We actually started Proxy at the exact same time, and we had already gone into it with this concept of 100% remote, because I had been through that, and I was like, I just want the best talent. And so we set it up that way, and then as bad as COVID was, it was actually, it was one of those things where it was just perfect for us. And so you recognize that was a blessing. Fantastic.
Amen.
We're lucky. Okay, so you're in this mode where it's a go-go stage, right? I mean, you are running after and keeping up with this wave of change that's taking place in SAP. As you're going through that, talk to me about your leaders list. What's on the list? What are you managing through? We get an idea of your size and scale and the change that's taking place, but what's on the list, and what are you trying to, how are you trying to prioritize and manage all that?
Yeah, it's difficult, and every day I go through a list of objectives, and as for myself as a leader, finance is a big one, HR is a big one, customer support is a big one, customer management. You've got all these activities that you need to knock off, and then you need to subset them. Every day I try to reach out to somebody on my staff just to have a communication from an HR perspective, just from a founder and from a leader's perspective. I try to do that even when I'm traveling on the road. I am a road warrior. I'm a Delta Diamond and an American Express Admirals Club all at the same time. And so I'm constantly meeting with partners, staff, customer activities, and I want people to be able to come to me anytime they want. So a big thing for me is the finance department. I'm constantly working with them to make sure that our numbers are growing, but we're not growing too fast. What we're doing with our employees, how, if we've got any turnover from an HR perspective, how that's going to hit our bottom line, what projects we've got going on, and what projects we're going to be coming in. So I'm constantly putting together my list, and I actually have it over here on this laptop where I'm going through and I'm checking those things. I make sure I do a list before I leave my home office to go back to my lovely bride and children for the evenings or whatever, if they're here. And so it's a continuous evolution. The list is never stagnant. And the list is always one of those things where I can pull from days prior or weeks prior, but it's never the same components of that list ever. And I think that's important because some people just take a list and say, oh, I'm going to do these things every day. And they load them into their laptop and say, oh, I'm going to do this. Well, life changes. Activities happen. Customers come to you and say, you know what? We've decided we're going somewhere else. Holy cow, how did I not see that one coming? What's going on there? Who didn't see that coming? Staff members will come to you and say that, you know what? I've decided I want to do something else for my career. Okay, well, how did that come about? Did HR not know? Did you not go through your quarterly reviews? Where's your manager? Things come into your place. And so you need to make sure that you continuously update and modify and work through those items.
That's really smart because I know that you're disciplined enough to be consistent and then flexible enough to be able to change. So one of the things I heard about that I think everybody should pay attention to on their lists is this micro macro perspective. You know, you have a macro perspective and big focus on finance. And when you have 200 plus staff, you have to start thinking about that. It can't just be I'm sure it'll all work out. So you do pay attention to that. But then I love the addition of a micro discipline. You know, the idea that you're going to reach out to one person each day in your team, that is a really, really interesting and smart approach. So I think that micro macro thing is a really nice takeaway for other people listening to this.
And I hope other founders and other CEOs or executives who are part of the organization who are listening to this, don't hide. You're the leader of your organization. So I make it a point. I'm a very gregarious person. I'm outgoing. I have fun. Look at me. I'm a bald, bearded man wearing meta glasses that have got two pairs. And I like to have fun. I got Picasso's multicolor on my wall. I got Rocky. I got Brett Michaels guitar. I'm a fun guy. I want to share that with my team. I want them to enjoy themselves. Now, work is work. I'm a workaholic, and to the nth degree. Hell, I was up till midnight last night because I was trying to play with something with my PA who is on different time zones. And so but at the end of the day, I also like to have fun, and I want others to enjoy their lives. Have fun at your families, your children, be able to do things. Have some fun in life, but get to know them a little bit. You know, I've got a young lady that just had a baby down in Chicago that I just ordered a gift for. And I know that I think she's going to have a great time with it because it's a Packers gift and she's a Bears fan. Little things like that.
Perfect.
Fun.
Perfect.
Micro, macro, but be the leader of the organization that they and you really want to be.
That's great. That's great.
That's a mic drop right there, Bryon. That's a boom.
Boom. Chris Carter bringing it to you live. Okay, so let's go back to the list. When we start talking about the things that you're focused on, you know, we always talk about, and there's these stages of where you're operating in the business and you're the top technician, the top salesperson, the top whatever, and you still have to be that guy.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you move into leading, right? And then you recognize you can't do it all yourself. You're a bottleneck. You have to start thinking about succession planning. You know, do I have real functional maturity? Do I have an advisory board? Do I have outside counsel? That's a different leadership role.
Right.
And then you get into transforming the business. Yes. And that's where you start looking at how am I really building new centers of excellence? And I've already mapped my processes and I'm finding automations and efficiencies. And so as you've gone through, you know, operating, leading, transforming, and then the last one I would throw out is scaling. And that's where you start thinking about, I'm going to build out my HR team and I'm going to scale with people like you just brought up, or I'm going to do my pre-due diligence and I'm going to acquire other firms, or maybe I'm going to sell. So do you distinctly remember going through stages like that where you were operating in the business, then you were leading the business, transforming? Yes. Do you remember those?
Absolutely. When we first started, I was full in the business. I was technology, I was sales, I was marketing, I was promotion, I was partnerships, everything. And this is where founders start to fall apart. Maybe I don't know if that's a good term, but they start to fail. If you're gonna go through that process, one of the things I recommend, and I wish I would have done this earlier, but once I did, it was a game changer. I brought in a CIO, and he took all the technology off my plate. I brought in a chief operating
Hold it.
officer.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal because you are a technologist, right?
Yes. So I brought in somebody who I knew was smarter than me. We vibed. We knew each other for probably 15 years before I brought him into the company. We were partners at different. He was a partner at Dell EMC VC, and we were at AppRoyo, and I had worked with him on other SAP activities. I knew the SAP side inside and out. He knew infrastructure, cloud, and he was not as high on the SAP side, where I was not as high on the infrastructure stuff. I knew the VMware and everything. So we worked so well, and our mindsets were, when I interviewed him, and he didn't know I was interviewing. We just went out for a partner meeting, and I started chit-chatting about, hey, what you got to think about these types of things? What do you think about this? So then at the end of the dinner, we were at Sushi Samba in Las Vegas, Nevada. Love sushi, so does he. We sat there, we were drinking sake and whiskey because we like that together. And it was probably 3 hours of dinner. People were coming and going. It was a big event, back and forth. And I said, hey, you want to come work for me? It's like, what? He didn't even. I said, well, this was a great interview. I'd like to hire you. And I wrote down a number on a napkin and I slid it over to him. I said, you know what? Leave Dell and come to us. Now that's a huge gamble. That right there was a huge gamble. Leaving there and going. And he literally looked at me, goes, seriously? And I said, seriously. Go home to Rochelle, think about it, and think about if you'd like to come join us. And I gave him a few days. I busted him up a little bit. I said, so what? You were too drunk? You drank too much whiskey? You can't remember what I said? He goes, oh no, Rochelle and I are really thinking about it. And so we negotiated back and forth. He came on. And then I dropped it off on his lap.
That's awesome. I didn't mean to, go so far into that one role because I know you were about to say that you built out your lead team, right? You got the CIO, the COO. But I do think that's really important because that takes a ton of, you got to know yourself, and you got to know that you are consciously making the decision to grow the business. And that is hard for a lot of people.
I consciously knew I needed to grow. I consciously knew that I needed help. I needed somebody with expertise in these areas because I was a minimalist in multi and I was a maximist in one. So now I needed to change it. I needed to have people use, there's that guy on TikTok that throws his glasses. Well, I'm not throwing them, but I'm going to take them off. I'm going to point. I firmly believe that if I got the right C-suite and the right management team with people, I would be able to be the face of the company, bring the leadership down, lead and bring that down, work with that team to finite, and then be able to grow. And we did that just before COVID. We had everybody in place and things were just going great. And COVID came in, kind of kicked us around a little bit, but we changed some things. And then we started moving the process. And we built that process and we installed that process and we moved forward with that process. And that's what changed the organization's dynamic. And who knows if we would have really done all of that if it wasn't for COVID. But it was wonderful.
Chris, do you wish you would have done it sooner?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's really challenging. I just bring this up because so we were talking about going through those stages of operating, leading, transforming, and scaling. But what is really easy, I think, as an executive and an entrepreneur is to look backward and go, oh, I remember that. It's when you are in it that it's very challenging to recognize. I gotta recognize I am in a conscious decision to make change. Yes. And so did you feel it as I'm ready to make the next step, or was it things were happening and you were moving and it was boiling water?
we literally were moving so fast, and I didn't have any of that in place, that I was so overloaded and so burdened and so much activity that so it really was one of those things where we came down to me just saying, look, I want this company to be what it can be. I need to bring in these people. I need to bring in these assets. I need to, I grew my org chart tremendously, and we started moving forward from there.
Good for you, man. So that's 10 years you'd been in the business, right? Or approximately 10 years. And then all of a sudden you decide, okay, now it's a major difference.
Yeah.
And so, or maybe 9 years, whatever that is. Not uncommon, right? Because I always talk to people about, there's a period of time where it's market fit. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm just really happy with, you start making a ton of money yourself, and that's great. But then you start to recognize things have to change. So
Yes.
I applaud you for recognizing the change in the leaders list that you were going through. Normally, we would have shifted and said, what do you think ought to be on your leaders or on other SMB entrepreneurs leaders list? I think we covered a ton of that. But I do want to ask you before I let you go, if people, I'm a CEO, I'm running an SMB, I'm similar to you in the fact that I understand technology, but I'm not a technologist.
Right.
What should I do as soon as I stop listening to this? What should go on my leaders list based on the things you see in the market, Chris?
You know, the first thing, if you're not a technologist and you're in an organization that needs or works around the technology realm, is find that ear that you can talk to and that's willing to give you solid advice. Somebody that you can trust, somebody, you don't have to necessarily know them personally, but if you know them professionally and you know this person has done this in his field and is that type of an individual that you can trust. It's amazing. When you, as founders, we think, okay, we're leaders, we got to do this. If you reach out to other fellow leaders and founders, they will talk to you. They will have conversations with you because they know how hard it is to get up the ladder of success. And this is why I always make the comment that I'm out. I always reach my hand down, and I'm always trying to pull people with me up the ladder of success, and I'm trying to push them ahead of me. I've got former coworkers and former friends, or current friends and others, who I've helped push into different positions, and we have conversations all the time. They need to know, hey, Chris, I've only been in this job for 6 months. I'm now the CI or CO or whatever. I'm having this issue. Have you ever had this problem? Communication with other leaders is so important. So take whatever you don't succeed at or you're not extremely qualified at, find somebody in that realm to help you and to have conversation. There's a lot of leaders, coaches activities. There's coffee activities. You know, I have 2 different coaches events that I go to and I talk to people. They talk to me. We just communicate. So whatever you're less qualified in, find somebody in that industry or that eco that can help you with that. That would be my biggest thing. I think that that's hugely helpful for everybody.
Man, I can't agree with you more because a lot of people will refer to that as their personal advisory board, or, you know, it doesn't have to be that formal. I had a call 2 days ago from somebody that I really didn't know that well, and he just said, I need a consigliere. And I, as a Godfather fan, I was like, sit down, my friend. This is going to be fun.
Exactly. I love it.
You know, and you'll figure out, like, is there a personal connection? You can build on that, but there is this point of trust that you just have to figure out. Like, and it was great because he walked in and said, I don't know if I'm at a stage where I could hire you, but I do need some support, and could I be able to tap you?
Yes.
And I was like, that's perfect.
Awesome.
I mean, like, then, you know, we're all going into this with the right stage, and of course we want to help. So I think that's great counsel, Chris. Chris Carter, this was so great. Thank you for sharing all of your years of experience and the things that you've gone through. I love to get counsel from people who have actually done it. And you are doing it, my man. We'll share your information because I'm sure people are going to reach out and just ask for help. And I know you mean it when you say you're happy to do it.
I really do. You know, hit me up on LinkedIn and say you saw the podcast and you just want to chit chat. I am all about just chit-chatting or just having a coffee or just doing, I tell people all the time, just do it. Just reach out. Let's chit-chat.
I love it. All right. Thanks again, Chris Carter. Thanks for being on the leaders list.
Brian, we'll talk to you soon.